Hey, and welcome back to JK's Weird Bloodborne Weapons, the series where I take some unusual Bloodborne weapons that are usually only available late game or DLC and edit them in so I can do a full start to finish playthrough. After giving the Cos Parasite a try and becoming a tentacle broccoli man, the next logical step was to take a severed alien arm and try to beat the game with that. I'm talking of course about the Amygdalan Arm, another DLC exclusive weapon. The rules are pretty simple. I've got to beat the game using just the Amygdalan Arm for damage. But here's one for you guys at home. We haven't done this in a while, so if you feel inclined to, why not join in and play the Armed and Dangerous drinking game? Simply pour yourself a beverage of your choice and take a drink whenever you hear the word arm from this point onwards. Don't worry, it almost certainly won't be that many times, but if you get the exact number of times I say it in the video, comment it below and I might or might not reply saying, hey, what a charming person you are. So to start with, this is easier to set up than the Cos Parasite run. I first give myself the best possible name for my character, Amygdalan, and I choose the violent past origin as I need 17 strength. I purposefully take the express route to the Hunter's Dream and then pick up a starting weapon and also the pistol, even though we won't be using any firearms on this run. So let's have a look at this beautiful appendage. It's mainly a strength weapon, although it does offer a negligible bit of arcane damage, similar to the Burial Blade. The one-handed mode is simply a big old smashy club, which can stagger lock most enemies by just spamming R1. The charged R2 in this mode is an even bigger overhead smash, which pancakes a lot of enemies and does good damage. In the tricked mode, this slashy tendril comes out, giving us a bit of a longer reach with our R1s, but also the charged R2 here does the overhead smash again, but it follows up with 2 tendril slashes as long as we remain holding the button. That seems like it could deal some good damage there. I guess my only confusion comes with the name of the weapon. This is more like an extendable claw than anything else. But otherwise, I'm feeling pretty good about our armament so far. We've got blunt damage and regular damage, which will both come in handy I feel. As with any Bloodborne run, we gotta get this thing upgraded if we want to stand a chance against the denizens of Yharnam. So, we run around getting some bloodstone shards, took out these wolves with ease through this doorway, and unlocked the shortcut back to the lamp. There's more shards around the dried up waterway, both as loose items and also from enemy drops. I now had 12, and using a madman's knowledge, I unlocked the house and leveling up in the dream, and upgraded the Amygdalan Arm to +2. I then farmed some more, upgraded my health, stamina and strength, before finally getting some new drip, and the last bloodstone shard I needed to upgrade my weapon to +3. Now that we were well armed, it was time to fight our first boss, Father Gascon. Remember how I said spamming R1 in untricked mode can stagger some enemies? Well, it appears that human-sized enemies like Gascon fall into that category. I mean, just look at this, he can barely do anything. By the time he's transformed, most of his health is gone. We can't R1 stagger him, but doing the tricked R2 still pancakes him, so a couple of those followed up with a final swing ends this one. Seems like our weapon was very harmful to him. I pumped some more strength, grabbed the Blood Gem Workshop, and entered Cathedral Ward. Already, it seems some of the new enemies can break through our R1 stagger, which is probably a good thing as this would be too easy otherwise. For this run, I decided it was only fitting not to stick to one set of clothing and try out as many different armors as possible. I chat with Sir Alfred, who gives us some fire paper, which I of course can't use on this weapon thanks to its marginal arcane scaling. We grab a gem, bonk this werewolf, equip this gem for a whopping 0.7% extra damage, and head to minigun country. Now, I want to try some stuff in this run that I've never done before, one of which being actually able to talk to Jura. To do this, apparently you need to run through Old Yharnam without harming any of the beasts here. Doesn't stop Jura from shooting at you though. I run all the way through, unlocking the shortcut, and fight all of my natural instincts to make beast pate, and now it's time for the blood-starved beast. Sadly, this fast-moving creature isn't stun-locked by our R1 spam, so I made use of some transform attacks instead. The tricked R2 also did great damage with its multiple hits. The second phase poison spam is annoying as always, but thankfully we brought the relevant pharmaceuticals to cure the poison. Also, at least compared to the Cos Parasite run, our damage is better so we can finish it off more quickly. It's just a shame some idiot wasn't watching his health and died right afterwards. Oops. Luckily, I managed to get my souls back and level up strength a bit more. With Blood-Starved Beast dead, we now have an unfortunate run-in with the long-hooded Arm of the Law, and just like that time I ate those mushrooms I found in the forest, I wake up in a prison cell. But it's not all bad news. There's a whole bunch of twin bloodstone shards here, as well as the moon rune, a not so great armor set which we quickly get rid of for Gascons, and we send Adela the Nun back to Cathedral Ward. Some more level ups to strength, and we upgrade our weapon to +4. Now, for the real reason I came here, to fight Dark Beast Parl. After doing this later in the last 2 runs where we absolutely annihilated him, I had forgotten how savage this fight can be at low levels where you get 2-shot by his attacks. Technically, I only need to discover Dark Beast Parl to do what I want to do with Jura, but now I feel like I've got to beat him. Let's go farm for a few more things first though. I get into the old abandoned workshop for the doll set and the umbilical cord, kill the beast-possessed soul, and get up this elevator so I can open all the gates in Cathedral Ward. Doing this allows me to initiate Eileen's questline, one of my favourite NPCs in the game. Adela then gives me some blood because why wouldn't she? And then Eileen tells me about a hunter gone mad back in Gascon's arena. Just like most hunter fights in the game, this is pretty tough. But we got him second try with Eileen's assistance, and Henrik is defeated, meaning we can buy his armor from the Insight shop. This armor has the highest bolt resistance in the game, but is sort of like the Bloodborne version of Kenny from South Park. But anyway, I go on a bit of a collectathon for twin bloodstone shards, on the way finding one of these damn triangle gems, the absolute bane of my existence across— oh hey wait, this weapon actually has a triangle gem slot. Not bad. With a +6 weapon and a few more level ups combined with my armor with high bolt resistance, I'm ready to go back to face Parl, and I still get 2-shot. Fantastic. But the damage is vastly improved, and I can actually break him down this time. One thing I found worked great was getting underneath him and doing a charge tricked R2. Thanks to some good dodging and a few staggers towards the end, victory is finally ours. I swapped the top hat back instead of the Kenny headgear, and we can now run on through the gate behind Parl into Old Yharnam, and it allows us to have an armistice with Jura to have a nice discussion. Was it worth it? Probably not honestly, but hey, at least I can say I've done it. So let's head back to Hemwick Charnel Lane now to easily grab the Lake Rune and another Blood Gemstone. We also take on the witches who, as always, are no cause for alarm. For this one, I just stuck to clubbing them with the untricked mode. Even with their swarm of cemetery shades, they get crushed easily under our might. This of course gives us the Rune Workshop tool, and as luck would have it we have several runes to put in already, as well as a slightly better blood gem. Alright, let's get some mandatory bosses sorted, starting with Vicar Armelia. In this fight, it felt like the right time to bust out the transformation combos, and I'm glad I did. When transforming from club to tendril, you can sometimes strike Amelia right in the face if you time it correctly. At one point, I was able to lay in a lot of damage thanks to an arm break, getting rid of nearly 20% of her health in just a few seconds. Weirdly, she never tried to heal here compared to the Cos Parasite run where it felt like she was constantly going for it. Strange how the RNG for her works like that. But in any case, we smash her into Reindeer Marmalade and achieve victory. We level up and listen to Master Willem the human barnacle spew some crusty nonsense while in his rocking chair. Should have got himself a comfy armchair instead. We're also given Eye of a Blood Drunk Hunter for DLC access. As I went about killing a few enemies for fun, I discovered the uncharged R2 of the trick mode is actually pretty good. It does multiple hits and can easily take out this brick guy and even the octopus man here. I think we're probably ready to head down into the Forbidden Woods now. Luckily, I knew about the swinging spike trap here, so I was easily able to get out of the way and avoid it. I grabbed this arcane gem from down here just for the hell of it, as well as this dirty gem before my character decided to have a relaxing soak in the poison. Motion control gestures suck. With the shortcut to Yharnam opened, I paid a visit to the clinic and grabbed the Canehurst summons, which I'm going to use right now.
My name is Baron's Castle.
Although I wasn't going to attempt Martyr McFly yet, Canehurst was still a good place to come to get some early Bloodstone chunks. The enemies are probably a bit above our level, but R1 spam still gets the job done. There's a total of 5 chunks to grab, which is just one upgrade, but still it's something. Well, back to the Forbidden Woods now. These snake men are normally pretty annoying, but at least with the ones that haven't transformed yet, it is actually possible to R1 stunlock them and not give them the opportunity to burst out, making them easy to handle. Actually, even the transformed version isn't too bad. I added a few new gems we picked up to the mix, grabbed another bloodstone chunk, and it was time for the Shadows of Yharnam. A lot of people tend to go for the fireball shooting shadow first, but I honestly find the sword wielder more annoying, mainly for that extendo arm sword attack that yeets you from across the arena. So I take him out first, and then the candle guy, who's a lot easier because even though he also has a sword, he often defaults to spewing fire, which is easy to get around and attack. With just the fireball guy left, this is pretty easy as this one has the least health and is easier to stunlock because he can't counter with a quick melee attack. A few more transformed attacks and our prey is slaughtered despite their harmonious attack strategy. I pumped our health and stamina a bit and consider our options. We've got 3 bloodstone chunks, but it would be good if there was a way to get a few more to upgrade the weapon. And wouldn't you know it, there is a way. We just gotta wait here until we get strong-armed into the DLC. Although quite a lot of the bloodstone chunks are later on, there's a few we can easily grab, such as 2 from this scurrying beast outside this cave, which lets us upgrade our weapon to +8. In preparation for ROM, I also grabbed these beast blood pellets from back in the Forbidden Woods. In Byrgenwerth, we take out the gaping dragon, and to my utter delight, Yuri here is very susceptible to the R1 stunlock. I normally avoid fighting them at all costs because of how annoying the fight is, but this completely trivialized it, and I smashed their smarmy face in. If nothing else, I give this weapon huge props for that. I also crack Willem in the face, and then realized I hadn't yet sold the door gear, so I did that for huge profit, and in turn some more level ups. With all that nonsense out the way, we've got to deal with the next boss, Rom, and a whole armada of pretty scary looking spiders. Even though the untricked mode does blunt damage, it didn't help too much with taking these spiders out. I still had to use the strategy of hitting them from behind. I actually made the effort to kill all the spiders, at least in the first and second phases, which I don't often do. I tried to do the beast blood pellet strategy twice, but in the second phase, she just kept spamming the AoE explosion, so I just went in for the attack. For the final phase, I didn't bother with the minions, and one transform combo was actually enough to get the job done. I am actually really liking this weapon. When the moon it turns red and we will soon be dead, that's amore. We pump strength even higher and then proceed to the ever joyous Yahoo, where, to be honest, I just make a beeline for the bloodstone chunks. The one good thing about coming here. Our weapon is now up to +9, and our next opponent is one of the few bosses who's more armed than we are, the One Reborn. I was praying that the damage would be okay given part of our offenses are arcane. I think I'm still traumatized from the Cos Parasite run. After smashing the bell-ringing woman in quick and unceremonious fashion, I see something which causes my jaw to drop. We stagger this atrocity in just 4 hits. That almost brings a tear to my eye. Honestly, from this point onwards, I threw caution to the wind. Just look at that damage. R1 smashes for the stagger, then a transformed combo, and a couple more strikes to bring an end to this without too much issue. I kept pumping up strength, and then made my way to the lecture hall. In an effort to mix things up, I then chose the Nightmare Frontier route first, as opposed to the Nightmare of Mensis. Now, number 1 question. Does the R1 stunlock work on the Winter Lanterns? You're damn right it does. Now for Amygdala, where I'm supposedly going to be fighting it with one of its own arms, but seriously, what? My weapon doesn't look anything like this thing's arms. But anyway, I wanted to come here early as I didn't want to just destroy Amygdala like I did on the previous few runs, and, well, this was indeed more of a fight. It's not as easy to hit its head compared to the Gatling gun, Cos Parasite or the Scythe, but there's still a fair few openings after it slams. When it gets low on health, it actually disarms itself in an attempt to cause more damage and have longer range, but this didn't help too much. The range of the tricked mode came in handy for hitting the head and limbs when I needed, and a couple more hits bring Amy down. Nightmare of Mensis is not a fun area, especially when you've got this, and especially this. Now I was sorely tempted just to cheese him with poison knives or the strap from the Cos Parasite video, but I decided this time I would fight this annoying varmint properly, even if it did mean the potential of this happening. On my next attempt, I was able to survive the initial assault, dodge through the second, and then basically just bullied him in the corner until he dropped dead. This was really satisfying. Pure brute force wins out. Now, getting past Mikolash is always a significant win because of what lies behind him. More brain trusts that drop some of the best gems in the base game, when they don't decide to screw me with quicksilver bullets. To make farming them a little easier, I spent all of my insight and grabbed the Frenzy Protection rune from earlier. This made a huge difference, especially because these guys take a lot more hits than the ones from the Nightmare Frontier earlier. Hopefully the next drop should be better. Really? More bullets? Are you kidding me? What the actual hell? At least there's one here just laying on the bridge. I get this equipped for a significant damage boost, plus add the eye rune for more item discovery, and finally, this one decides to drop something different. Pebbles. I didn't even know they could drop them. Why would you make that a possible drop from these monstrosities? A little frustrated, I decided to drop the brain and grab the blood rock first, and then came back for one more round with these guys, and finally start getting some good gem drops. They also dropped quite a few echoes, so I smashed in a few more level ups to get strength to 50, added my gems, and upgraded our beautiful appendage to plus 10 at last. I feel like we're ready to take on the wet nurse, and I actually just keep noticing how many bosses in this game have a multitude of limbs. In any case, given our previous experience of fighting this boss with arcane weapons, you'll probably know that this isn't going to go well for Nursey. A transformed combo early on takes off over 2000 health, and she loves just doing slow walks where I can easily get behind and lay in the damage. A real armature mistake, really. Down she goes. The biggest danger here was me dying of old age waiting for the Nightmare Slain text to pop up. Before we delve into the DLC, there's a few other bits of business in the base game we need to clear up. I went and grabbed the upper Cathedral Ward key, but went to take out Ligarius first. The reception we got from him was lukewarm at best. I stuck mainly with R1s here, just because he can counter very quickly, especially in Phase 2, so I didn't want to be locked into a long animation. The general safe windows here are after any of his diving attacks. I did try a charged R2 in trick mode to punish this, but it's definitely riskier. Finally, with a couple of R1 smashes, he goes down. Give this weapon a try yourself for this boss. There's a reason that Martyr is an anagram of tri-arm. With this done, there was one boss we had been missing for quite some time, so we needed to go back and do it. So on to Upper Cathedral Ward, a terrifying area with many paralyzing octopus men, but thankfully FromSoft's iffy wall physics can really be handy here. After getting the key, we can go take on an army of blue bobblehead Blumpkin boys. Impaling two of them with a tricked uncharged R2 was very satisfying. Our damage is massive, and we actually get them down to less than 25% health before Phase 2 even begins. After this, we use the sweeping tendril to wipe out loads of the minions, and one final R2 ends this pretty easy fight, which I definitely didn't die to at all. So, Ebrietis, Daughter of the Cosmos. To be honest with you, I feel like I had a really lucky run with this fight this time round. I've said it before, but the difficulty of this fight really varies depending on how much she wants to slam the head versus how much she wants to do the charge. Here, she barely did the charge, but did the head slam a lot, even in the final phase, which is quite unusual. During the phase transition, we actually landed a transform combo that did over 3,500 damage, which is pretty big. Sadly, the trick mode can't hit the head as easily as the scythe or the parasite could, but it didn't matter too much given the propensity Ebby had to put her head in harm's way during this latter section. With her completed, it was time to stop putting it off and at last go back and fight the Bloody Crow of Canehurst. I think I've actually only done this fight once before. Not sure why that is. Oh, now I remember. This guy is insanely annoying. He has loads of health and can slay you in a heartbeat if you're not careful. I know you can cheese him at the stairs, but I wanted to try do it properly. Eventually, I found you can time trick charged R2s to pancake him just as he gets close, and the extra tendril slash helps to keep chipping his health away. With one final swing, the Bloody Crow is dispatched, and we share a heartwarming goodbye with Eileen. Well, let's move on to the DLC with everything in the base get. Okay, I'll stop trolling, let's go take out the Cleric Beast. Here you go. But now, it's truly time for the DLC. Wow, a giant cannon. Somebody should do a challenge run with that. Well, Ludwig is our first DLC boss, a horse-man eye-mouth monstrosity, one of the most terrifying creatures in the game. As is pretty much always the case for me, Phase 1 is pretty smooth, the transform combos absolutely destroy his health, but the higher arcane resistance he starts packing in Phase 2, plus my general habit of getting caught by his swings, make this a bit tougher. It's not as much of an issue as with the pure arcane damage of the Cos Parasite though. I stuck with the R1 of untricked mode for this, just because it was quicker, and thankfully, despite a couple of close near deaths, I managed to send this horse back to the farmlands. Afterwards, I realized I had a cursed blood gem equipped that reduces the damage to beasts. Oops. I grabbed the eye pendant, which I always forget to do, rode the elevator up, lost to a fellow R1 spammer, and then prepared to fight the Wish.com Celestial Emissary. Think about how low a bar that is for a moment. These guys can be pretty annoying as they like to time their attacks in perfect harmony, especially all their slaps. Luckily, sometimes you can hit several of them at the same time with wide swings, and their hands in the air like they just don't care attack is a great chance to get damage in. One final charged attack puts an end to this boss. In my effort to keep rooting fresh, I decided to do Lawrence now, and don't worry, this time I did remember to change my gems up so I didn't have the one reducing damage to beasts. I actually took Lawrence kinda lightly, and that was a mistake. I did loads of damage initially, but then right before Phase 2, I got nailed for a huge hit which nearly finished me off. That's karma, I suppose. The final phase was also a bit sloppy. I ended up with no vials remaining, and he still had a fair bit of health left. The only thing that saved me was Adela's blood from earlier. By necking that, it gave me just enough health to get through, and a couple of charged R2s followed by a solitary R1 slash bring this guy down. But what about Lady Maria with her Carmine splatter following her attacks? Well, remember earlier I talked about the R1 stunlock working well against human type bosses? Yeah, it worked pretty great here. I got her stuck in a corner at one point and she didn't use any hyper armor moves. Easy fight, and now only one remains for the DLC. I genuinely don't think I'll ever be good enough to beat Orphan in under 10 tries on any run. There are a number of deaths, but I did come up with a few good strategies. Viscerals weren't going to do much, but a charged R2 after the jump in untricked mode, followed by another charged R2, does a good chunk of damage. I actually got lucky and got this in just before Phase 2 was going to start, so he was down to about 1/3 health at this point. Then, when Phase 2 begins, Orphan goes wild, deafening you with his philharmonic screaming. Honestly, I couldn't really tell you what I did here, but it mainly involved trying to get a charged R2 smash in when I felt like I could. I didn't manage to actually be right behind him to get the stagger, but I still got the damage in. In the final stretch, I gave in to my base instincts, spammed R1, and then finished him with a charged R2 to at last end this brutal encounter. So let's finish this. I gobbled some tasty umbilical cords for energy and then faced off against German, a man with a big scythe and an annoying firearm. Phase 1 was fine, R1 stunlock still worked here, but when he glows blue, he hyper armors a lot of his attacks, so this won't work anymore. Instead, I opted for a transform attack here and there and trick R1s for some good range. He actually got a visceral on me at one point, which was pretty hairy, and I failed to time some charged R2s on several occasions. In a near trade at the end, I finished off German for good. The Moon Presence then tried to take me into its arms. I rejected the hug. It wasn't best pleased, but it didn't matter because it did that 1 HP drain attack, stood still for about 20 years, and let me beat it to death with a transform combo. So that's it. Bloodborne beat him with the Amygdalan Arm. This was quite a good weapon actually, usable the whole way through, fun, quirky, both range and stagger, and it wasn't a nightmare on certain bosses like the Cos Parasite was. If you want to arm yourself with this armament, make sure to pick out a good armor to wear and join the Amygdalan Army to cause great harm to the swarm of enemies throughout Bloodborne. There'll be no armistice here for sure. If you enjoyed the video, let me know which armor or armament in Bloodborne is your favorite in the comments below, and of course if you want to help the channel out and be notified of new content when it comes, make sure to hit the subscribe button. I appreciate you. Until next time, I've been JK Leeds, see ya, and have a good one.